All right, everyone. This is Zach with Cajun Wildlife Control. We're out here doing some ag work, and I've noticed quite a few guys on Facebook on various different pages, uh, you know, asking what's the best thing for moles and gophers and stuff like that. They're similar, but at the same time, you got to tackle them completely different. Your moles are insectivores and stuff like that, so you got to kind of gear your selection and everything on that. Towpack type traps and stuff like that are really good. Um, Jesse Stuckey with GetGophers.com and like Tony Hellenberg with Mole Reaper and all. They're really good guys. They put up lots of moles and gophers every year. I've talked to both of them. They sell really good products. I specifically use Jesse Stuckey, the Gopher Trappers supplies, mainly because he's only like an hour drive from me. But just to kind of show some like how to do gophers at least. Guess I'll give y'all kind of a quick rundown of exactly what we do. Maybe it kind of help a couple of y'all that want to do it yourself in your own yard. There's no need to go buy these $30, $40 really high dollar expensive traps and stuff like that. You're looking $10, $12 a trap, right? Let's see. And I'm literally just using a piece of steel to probe, trap line traps. I've got a little over 100 in this bucket, and just this little 3-inch trawl. That's really that's about it for gophers, man. It's pretty simple. Give y'all a view of what I'm working with right now. These ag jobs are fun, but so people get overwhelmed by these mounds everywhere, and they're thinking, oh my god, I gotta have like 30 gophers here. They're thinking they got a whole mess of gophers, and in reality this whole mess is maybe one. One thing to do is, when you got all these big mounds just all clustered together like this, I don't typically like to set those because they usually got a lot of cross tunnels real close to the surface and stuff like that, and that's not what you're looking for. You're kind of looking for a long tunnel that goes down without there being a cross tunnel, with the exception of it being a good foot away from the surface. Is really the best one. So a lot of times I'm targeting these little single outliers like this, or like that, or like that, because a lot of times those tunnels don't have a whole lot of cross tunnels going with them. So let me see if this one will probe. So a lot of times I take the probe, right, and I'll move the mound, and you can see here you got kind of a discoloration here. This is typically the plug. Now sometimes they got that whole tunnel plugged up, and sometimes they don't. Like in the case of this one here, I barely pushed it in, and you can kind of feel the direction the tunnel's going. And you can see that whole rod, it's probably a good, I don't know, 24 to 28 inches, I believe. I'd have to measure it. You can see that thing goes almost all the way down. Let me see. Look, the plugs. I pulled the plug and it's gone. I usually take this end, and I will follow that tunnel, clear it out. These guys really do like clean tunnels. They're kind of anal about their tunnels being clean and tidy. Okay, sometimes, you know, the plug's 3-4 inches thick, and you know, you just take that little trawl. Like I said, it's not very wide. As you can see, you know, it's a pretty average sized gopher. This is not exactly a magnum gopher by any means. So, I mean, you can scoop, drag out. Is usually better, because if you go like this and push in, typically you tend to stuff way too much dirt down at the end or at the bottom, and then, you know, now you stand that potential of them burying your trap before they even get to it. So a lot of times I like to dig, you know, down like this and scoop and scrape out till I get to the point where I can use my rod to clean the tunnel out really well. I'll go grab a trap line trap. As far as poles, I use those little orange rods that Mole Reaper sells. Tony Hellenberg with Mole Reaper sells. When I'm kind of in more of the urban stage of things, you know. But when I'm out here in these fields, these hay fields, you know, I use, you know, these 4-foot fiberglass rods. Get them at Tractor Supply, Bomb Guards, Orsons, whatever, right? Anywhere you could pretty much buy, you know, farm supplies, they have these. It's just a standard 1/4 inch fiberglass rod with the marker flag taped to it. It's nothing special. It helps too with the coyotes not running off with my traps, or the badgers. And these trap lines, you know, they're pretty simple. You know, you open them up, and there's the dog there. You work that dog over the jaw, and then put the dog in the slot for your trigger. And then the spring here, give it one good full twist. That's it, you're set. This is your standard sized gopher trap. And then we'll just take it, put it here, and we'll just, you can see it fits. That rod I have right here, that end is sized for your standard traps. You know, push her on in there, get her in there a little ways, stick her down, and then I just give it a few taps. Where she's there. Then all I do is I'll just take a little tuft of grass, put that little tuft of grass right over the hole. You can use a piece of cardboard, you can use whatever. Or the main thing is just to cover the hole, keep the whole area from ground level to you know, keep the dirt from backflowing over your trap and filling your trap in. Put some dirt over it, and there you go. And then here in Kansas, we got 24-hour checks on everything. So come back the next morning. We'll check the 100+ traps we put out today. Which will net us typically 60 to 80 gophers. Best I've done was like around 90. But you net 60 to 80 gophers if doing it this way. A lot less digging, especially when you're dealing with customers in the urban areas that have higher end yards. You don't want to be coming out there with a full-size spade shovel, digging a big giant hole a foot down. You're setting 2 traps to catch 1 gopher. I'm setting 1 trap for 1 gopher, guys. It's that simple. There's no need to overthink it. You're using the tunnel they already have. You're not damaging any more property than what the gophers have already done. And then once we catch that gopher, It's just kick the mounds down. Out here in the ag fields, we don't kick them down, but in our urban areas and in people's yards, we do try to rake them down and stuff like that. And it allows us to know too if we need to come back and, maybe there's one we missed, or there was a slick one. Depending on the time of the year, sometimes you got multiples in the same tunnels. Right now, typically, it's one gopher to a mess. And in reality, if you really look at your mounds in your yard or in your neighbor's yard or whoever you're trying to help. If you really pay attention, you'll notice these mounds, for the most part, go in lines. They might zigzag a little bit, right? But for the most part, they're going in a direction. You can almost draw a line into the direction they're going. One thing you'll notice, it might not pick up quite as good on camera, but you can tell the new dirt is going to be a little bit wetter, a little bit cooler. It's going to be a brighter colored dirt, right? And then you can see these are older mounds. Stay away from these older mounds. Hit these fresh mounds. If you notice in that line, you'll see mounds that look a little bit weathered. I mean, you can see the difference. This has been rained on, frozen on, stuff like that. And you can see this. This is a lot wetter and looser dirt. This was not super fresh, but it's within the last day or two. You can see the difference from where they've damaged before to new mounds. I mean, it's a pretty obvious difference. You see old mounds. And like I said, occasionally you got to get up in these clusters. But for the most part, try and stay out of the clusters. Try and hit these little outliers. And as you can see, this whole mess right here of mounds, I got one trap set. That's all you need. So